Please give a warm Santa Barbara welcome to directors and subjects Filip Hammar and Fredrik Wikingsson.
Wow, thank you. Such a nice market.
Here's a little dog, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my dog, Philip. Can't take her.
What's his or her favorite film?
Yours.
Okay, great. I can see that.
It's Sophia films, as in Sophia Loren. I met her already.
Nice to see you, Philip.
Nice to see you. We're very happy to be here. It's, for us, it's humbling. This is our little film that we made, and we had no expectations, or we couldn't dream about, traveling around the U.S.
When you're in person, you look very handsome. In film, crying, you look very ugly.
Well, someone
During editing, Philip called me, can we do something about my face when I cry? Well, we don't have the budget for CGI in this film.
Someone also said, could you cry? You should have cried more. Just trying to be real, But it's not, it's a weird thing to see yourself on camera, losing it a little bit like that. It's just, I wonder who thinks they're beautiful when they cry. It's hard. Well, Sophia Loren.
Well, it's a powerful film, very, very powerful. I wanted to ask you, this whole, you meant to make this film to help your dad and to help him transform, to go back to the way he was. But what is so amazing about the film is that the person that was most transformed was you. Did you expect that?
Not at all, but it's true. I make the biggest journey in this film because I guess, this started out as just something I would do in private with my dad, and then we had a conversation, me and Fredrik, about well, maybe this could be filmed. And then sort of it evolved into this project.
Now it really started out as a trip, as a journey, not as a film. But we started talking about, when Philip said to me that he was thinking about buying an old car, you get the visuals in your head of a road trip, and we all love road movies. We talked a lot about Rain Man when we planned this film, because even though there is no Fredrik character in Rain Man, but still there is the Tom Cruise character going through a journey, etc., etc. So it started as a journey and ended up as a film.
Yeah, and just like Rain Man, the character that is transformed the most is Tom Cruise. And Dustin Hoffman remains.
Yeah, and I think it's like in life. I guess we don't like changes, or at least there's something scary about it. And that life consists of many, many chapters, obviously, and some are very bright and light and happy times, and some are dark. But there's a silver lining to maybe every chapter in life. That's what I learned with this film. I'm like, okay, I don't need to change my dad. Instead, I should enjoy who he is now, even though he's not like he always been. And that has actually changed my relationship to dad, because before this, it was like always me calling him and telling him, like, come on, it's all in your head. And our conversations were only about that. Mm-hmm. Now we can just talk about other things, soccer. He loves to talk about soccer. Then we talk about soccer. And it's easier, I guess.
Fredrik, you guys had so many cinematic tools. You had the recordings, the dictaphone. You also have the Super 8 films. Did you guys from the get-go understand that you could use those things to make the film more cinematic? Yeah,
it's like, you feel a bit like Indiana Jones or whatever when you found these old tapes and you start, digitalizing them and listening to them. And at first, when I listened to the old diaries, I felt like this is so dry and it's all about how much the parking costs. It's nothing. But there is a beauty to the almost mundane aspect of that. And we started talking about, like, all family has like a lore, and the past is always present, so to speak. So we very presumptuously and thematically, we started talking about these audio tapes should be like the score to the film, like the films, the visuals of today meeting the old audio, whatever. That was definitely part of. If we hadn't had the audio tapes, I'm not sure we would have made the film, because there was something about that.
And though they're nothing, that's so interesting, but it becomes almost. It's like poetry to me sometimes when I hear my sister only saying, like, what did you drink? Coca-Cola. And it's beautiful.
And you saw an Arab who was stretching.
Exactly. Yeah. In that context, it's kind of beautiful, those memories, because I found them, and when I told Fredrik we had them, it's so weird, just those it was scary almost to start listening to them. But then, you know, we didn't know what to do. We knew that we wanted to have them in the film, but we had no idea exactly how we would use it.
And how were you able to film the entire film without intruding into the journey?
It was really a small crew. Like, it was one photographer, and then we had another one who helped out, but we had one sound person, and we had a very, because of Lars' frailty, we had a very easy schedule, so he would be able to rest. So we really wanted to, his well-being was the priority, of course, but we really wanted to, I don't know, I've known him as long as I've known Filip, since almost 30 years. So, I mean, he knows me well. It would have been harder to bring in, I don't know, Richard Curtis to direct this film, or somebody, I don't know.
He was here today. You
I
know
that, of course.
Yeah,
That's
we
why.
just ran into
like
him.
he's sitting there.
Yeah, he's actually in the room.
No, but it also, I think, why we didn't intrude so much is because it is, after all, a documentary. Some people, I think, when you watch it, it plays out almost as a feature. It's which I think is a good thing, maybe.
Humble brag?
Well, but a feature is not always better than a doc. But no, but I think it's also because was a very organic process. So we didn't have all these plans, and you didn't have to have, you know, a lot of people working for us, and, you know, trailers, whatever. It's like a lot of it we'd actually come up with, you know, just at the very moment, or just like when talking about that road rage scene. That's something we came up with the evening before we did it, and so that's how we operate. So we had no idea really what we were going to do the next day all the time. But that's also then it's easier to convince my dad as well. You know,
But it's so beautifully shot. I was just curious, the film geek in me, when you guys are on the road, the cameras are capturing you guys in the front driving. Did you have cameras?
I have a camera on the hood that's mounted, and then we have one.
I can tell you, just driving that car on the Autobahn is very dangerous, maybe illegal, but having a camera on it, there were so many people who, you know, honking their horns, like, are you guys crazy? So maybe it was a little...
I mean, I think we do it differently because it was such a small film. So, you know, we also had the other car that was filming the car.
Following
he just was hanging outside out of the window and just filming it, which I think you would have some issues with here in terms of permits and union things, whatever.
This was not a permit-oriented shoot,
No,
I can tell you that.
But now we have all the signatures and everything. So it's
Are you
signed
sure?
out. Well, I don't know. But it's very much like, and we'd love to do a film like that. I think if we had more money or if it was bigger crew, I don't think it would have turned out as good as we think it did.
And Fredrik, I have a very particular question. Sometimes you will be you will be with them, and then, you know, they will have a dinner and you disappear. Did you guys work that dynamic ahead of time, that this is Fredrik time with Filip and Lars?
Yeah.
Other times,
That's
no?
a very good question. I mean, yeah, it felt since I know them so well, it would have been easy for me to, like, immerse myself in every scene if I wanted to. But it felt like, all right, they're having dinner. If I'm there, it's going to be a totally different conversation. It needs to be about Filip's dad and Filip. And maybe since Lars fell the first night in Malmö, we got some alone time. I started working as sort of a catalyst for Filip's journey, whatever. So it was, I don't know, it felt every scene was like, this is a Fredrik involved scene, and this is get the fuck out. And it seemed like organic.
You mentioned briefly about families, and watching your film made me think about families. We all have a mythology in our families and stories that we share amongst each other that to us is like epic, but to the average person,
like the Harry
Belafonte.
Yeah, it's not a very good story or anecdote, but it's still, you know, yeah, it's the family lore. There's always, you know, though in our family that was something.
Yeah,
so
actually, I'm gonna. When I first heard it, I was so like, "Is this?" There was major disappointment. But then I realized that that's almost the point of it. Like all these families in the family mythology and the family lore, they have this. Oh, when Dad tells that lovely story,
and you don't want to tell your dad that it's a terrible
story
story. It's
sucks.
like
but mediocre is more like it.
Is it mediocre? I don't know.
But it's not terrible. It's mediocre. Lukewarm.
Yeah, but there's not the joke part of it is not. But I mean, we did it also because.
But wait a second, is this always the way it is between the two of you?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, it is.
We drank a lot of coffee on the way up.
I feel like I'm the third wheel. Maybe the two.
You're my dad. You're my dad. But I think that those things are. That's why hopefully people can relate to it, or there are other things as well. But in Sweden, some people know who we are because we've done movies before and stuff. But here, what's great, what's so rewarding to oneself is when you realize that this is hopefully just a universal story, and as you say, about the stories we have in the family, but also
all families we have stories that we share that within the circle is hysterical, but then outside of it, it's like people go, what the?
Yes, I mean, we were pretty bold of us, I feel now, that we actually did it with that Harry Belafonte story. But I also think it's kind of timely, maybe, the film, because we couldn't expect sort of what happened with this. This journey has become a pretty big journey, and I think it is, maybe there's so much going on in this world right now, and there's a lot of, darkness, that's how people perceive it. And here is, I don't know, when we just, suddenly you make a film about just the love of your family, or maybe there's a message somewhere as well. We said in the beginning, like, what if we make a film where people, when they leave the theaters, pick up their phones and call their mom or their dad or whatever? And it could have become too sentimental. Hopefully it didn't. But I mean, I think the theme of this film somehow is very relatable.
I'm curious about your take on humor and pathos, the emotional moments. I watching your film, the humorous stuff, when the emotion comes, heightens the emotion to a level I don't recall seeing in a film. And the reverse, it's like, the emotion is happening and then humor happens, and the humor is heightened to a higher level because of the emotion that we've undergone. Were you guys
too kind?
We love hearing that, of course, because we wanted a grant from the Swedish Film Institute when we planned this film. So you write a little synopsis, and then we wrote about what we sort of planned for this, and then we got
basically get money in Sweden from the government. Yeah.
And then we got a hard no, and they wrote an email. We don't even want a meeting about this because this documentary seems to contain elements of humor, which to them was like a complete question mark. Why would you want to? This could be a heavy topic. Why would you involve humor in it? And to us, that's, unbelievable because. Again, as you said, I love the scenes in this film where, like, the confession scene, where it's like he confesses that his biggest sin in life is being rude to a cab driver.
In the 60s.
Yeah, in the 60s. And 30 seconds later, he tells the priest that he feels he might die soon. And, like, very, very heavy. And it's right next to each other. And that's I think it elevates things.
No, and we can't do it any other way. We've done, films and stuff in the past, and it always has the combination of humor and also not shying away from the darkness or whatever it is. And I think that, but it's really true. A lot of documentaries are just about, if this is a heavy subject, then it needs to be a very, very heavy film, because they don't, if they throw in some comedy there, it's gonna, the opposite of what you were saying. People think it's okay, then the film is not gonna be as powerful as it is. But this is life also. I think this is what it is in my family, have been all my life, where it's, my dad has been a pessimist all his life, but he's also been very funny all the time. So it's
that needs to be said. I mean, we worked hard on this film, but this film is nothing without Filip's dad, because it's the way that his compassion and his eccentricity and his, how lovable he is. Without him, there is no film. And Filip asked me, do you want to make a film about your dad? And I'm straight up like, he's not good enough.
Well, he's not charismatic enough.
He's not charismatic enough.
No, I said, I'll do it anytime. Anytime we'll do, if you want to do something with your parents, I'm on board. But no.
I know the answer to this, but I have to ask it. Why did you not include your mom in the journey?
Well, because when we started to think about this, or even when I started to think about this as just a trip with my dad, I did this a lot to my mom as well, because what happens when people get old, it's rare that people get sick simultaneously. Like, it happens at the dynamics shift. That's more common, and I see how it's been so tough for my mom to go through this, and just to see her husband just sit in that Belgian recliner. It's very important that it was from Belgium, but he truly sits there every day. So I did this for her, but I wanted to, I'm going to take Dad on a trip. So
she's like, get him off the.
No, but she's incredible. She is really, to me, maybe she's the star of the film. But it's it's not uncommon, this this thing, you know, depression when you get older, and some people say women open the door at 65 and men close the door at 65. That's not necessarily true.
Present company excluded, of course.
No, but it doesn't mean that it's like that all the time. But I think for my mom, it's unique. So I really wanted to, you know, I'm going to go away with that and let's see if I can change him, which proved to be a pretty, you know, naive approach to things from my end. But I didn't want to, you know, our hope was that maybe they would go on a trip after this together, my mom and my dad, so to speak.
There are so many themes that pop up throughout the film. You know, of course, aging and the younger generation having to deal and coming to terms with aging, but then also this amazing teacher that touched so many lives. Did you guys knew in advance all the layers, all the different topics and themes that you were going to be able to?
I think
I think we talked about at least. I mean, this could be like I don't know, just a road trip, so to speak. Maybe we could sort of try to get a portrayal of his entire life in this, from a young man doing, like in this quiet little sleepy small town where he spent 40 years as a beloved teacher, and get a full like. I don't know, portrait of him as well. So we wanted to get a lot of stuff in there, and the teaching thing, of course, because I've walked the streets of this little town with him, and he has touched if you're a teacher in a small town for 40 years, you've touched everybody almost. So it's incredible. We really wanted that to be part of the film.
It's like we treat him as he's some kind of, I mean, when people ask me about what are you guys working on now, and I'm like, a documentary about my dad. And people who don't know me or Fredrik, they more like, okay, so he was a prime minister of something, or he was a famous novelist, and it's like, no, it's just a teacher. But we elevate in this film. We treat him as he's, you know, whoever, Churchill, or you know.
But that was also the part of we wanted,
that.
the bigness, so to speak, of the cinema. I love the work of the cinematographers, and also the big score, like the music. The songs are big, and I mean, we love the contrast of these big, powerful songs and this small little car and this small little man. And just to make a hero sort of movie about him.
Yeah, and exactly. And it's like a everyday hero. He's like symbolizing. There are lots of them out there, like my dad. And I think people feel that you start to think about your own, maybe teachers or parents, whatever. But that with this film, what's been so incredible is how. And now it's actually the biggest documentary of all time in Scandinavia, which is weird. Did I come off as self-congratulatory now?
A little bit.
No reaction at all. There was like, okay.
You were asking for applause.
Yeah, I was like waiting, pause.
Americans are usually so good at applause.
When I introduced the film, I mentioned that.
Okay, because I'm just repeating it. Sorry about that.
Right.
No,
you want to say it one more time?
Yeah, well, it's the biggest documentary
in Scandinavia.
Of all time.
Sorry.
But I was just going to say that it's how.
Did you know that is the biggest documentary?
You're kidding me.
In Scandinavia, and it was
by far, right?
And it was #1 for 33 weeks.
Isn't it also the biggest Swedish documentary in Denmark? Also?
Yeah, I think.
No, but what's been fun with this, or rewarding, is also how we get so many.
And it's also the entry to the Oscars.
That I didn't know. I had no idea about that.
Idea about that.
But it's weird with all how people, you know, they send us the emails, and they send us DMs of their own trips that they're making with their parents now. I got an email the other day from a guy who said, I just drove my 98-year-old dad to so he could have lunch one last time at his favorite restaurant in Italy. That's 3 days in the car. And then he said, yeah,
did he make it back, the dad?
Seems like it. Seems like it. At least I think he wrote the email when he was home, when he came home. No, but that is also with this film. It's been incredible, all these small, effects that you see everywhere that people do. So my little dad, it's sort of weird when you realize I was out having dinner with him in Stockholm when I was in Sweden. My dad came there. It was interesting how there was suddenly a crowd outside the restaurant pointing at my dad, who sits there eating, drinking with a straw. People are waiting as if it's like TSM. Or no, it's called TMZ. It's like So we saw Lars Hammar eating at the Ivy yesterday. So it's weird how he has become some kind of national treasure after this. He deserves it, though.
Yeah.
He's a good human being, and that I think it's.
And so are you. Your
Well,
love,
that you don't know yet, but
well, I saw it on the screen. The love for your dad is one of the sweetest things I've seen.
I love him, and I think Fredrik also loves him, which that's part of the.
He's an easy man to love.
Yeah,
We're not as good as him, but maybe, working on it.
Working on it.
Fredrik, the cinematography of the France is another character in the film. Tell us about the importance of making the cinematography so spectacular as we go on that journey.
Well, I just, since we wanted this to be, we love watching movies in cinemas, and we know how hard it is to get people to come to cinemas. It's incredible you guys are here. But I mean, we needed to really, the producers weren't...
Driving here, we said, it's 15, is that okay? Maybe 20 people. If there's 20 people, we should be really, really...
happy. Yeah, so this is incredible.
So this is incredible.
Yeah, but so we told the producers that we need to really work on the imagery. We needed to be cinematic as hell for people to... We needed a trailer that would look like an adventure, a small but still exciting adventure. And that's what road movies need to be.
It needs to match my dad's sort of vision of what France is and was also. Because
it's a heightened version of France
it's
in a way.
Like dreamy.
Trust me, there are
sense.
shitty versions of France as well.
And
I have a
France
house there. If anybody wants to buy it,
you
feel
shouldn't tell
free.
people that you have a house, that you
It's
own
a
a
small
house in
small
France.
house in France.
You have a shack.
I have
you
a shack
in France.
Yeah.
They thought you were like
leaks.
this underdog from Sweden screening a film in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Can't
But we're in Santa Barbara after all. Yeah.
That's true.
Half these people have a house in France.
That's true. No, but I think, with this...
I'm joking, man. I'm sorry.
No.
I got a weird look.
I'm just waiting
Be
for your
careful with the crowd here,
Yeah, I'm not going to push it.
Driven all the way here. Yeah.
We're so thankful.
Somehow I feel like I lost control of
Well,
this.
I'm sorry. We're not drunk even.
Just coffee.
But there was something you were talking about.
Cinematography.
No, I think that is really interesting. And we're not interested, but it matches my dad's, because there's nothing wrong with France.
I didn't
according to
ask
my
you
dad.
the question. I asked
No, but
Fredrik
he is
the
also
question.
Yeah, the thing was, we wanted the beginning of the film to be as visually boring as we could sort of tolerate, for the contrast to be greater once we come to France. But we don't want to scare off people, of course. But Filip and Lars comes from a town called Köping that was actually voted in the 80s the most boring town in Sweden. Yeah. So it was easy to make that boring.
Yeah, it still has that reputation as well, So it's...
So for him, for this family, it was always like, okay, let's work through the winter, and then in summer, for 5 weeks, we're going to go to paradise. We wanted that elevated look of France, because that's how it is in his head, and that's normally how it is as well. So we worked on that a lot. So I'm really happy for the cinematographers, and that you guys see that. It's incredible.
But I also think it's not... people tend to have that sort of vision of something. It's like a paradise somewhere else, and it doesn't matter if it's France. It could be anywhere. I think that's pretty common. And the older you get, the more you tend to romanticize how incredibly beautiful. You can't say one negative word about France. And believe me, you can say negative things about France. It's it's a great country, but there's also some flaws to it. But with my dad, it's like everything is better in France. So that's also,
But it's also a trope for these kind of films that France looks great. So we wanted to make an eat, pray, love for smart people.
Good.
For the thinking man.
Tell me about the mistakes that were unpredictable. I'm thinking about the eggplant, the ratatouille evening, and also like the parakeet. That scene.
But I mean, the ratatouille scene is so weird because we just thought, okay, let's have a scene. It's not a very good idea in a way. Like me and my dad were supposed to just have a conversation, I guess, and we would film that. We had no idea what was about to happen. And even when I see that scene, Fredrik told me, well, I think it's going to be sort of tough for you to see that scene because I don't really recognize myself when I'm going after it. But we need need a better knife that's, it's just, I don't see how I act weirdly there because I obviously panic about my dad's health and how he's not the same he used to be. So that scene became something completely different.
I think always when you film documentary style, you have an idea of what you're going to get. And if you don't get that, the first reaction is always dread and fear. And, this isn't what we pictured it would be, and then after a while maybe it lands and dawns on you that maybe this means something else, and this is way more true than the little picturesque dinner we had imagined. So I think half the work as a filmmaker, or whatever you want to call it, is to be open to those changes and embrace them.
And how traumatic for you guys was it when he hurt himself, when he fell?
I mean, it was, yeah, well, it's just, it was all that work to just get him into the car, and I don't mean that literally, but all the planning, I talked to my mom and said, and she's, you know, can you tell Dad that, you know, he should do this, whatever, and then we're just leaving my hometown, you know, and we drive for a few hours. It was just such a, of course, it was just sad to see him like that, and when I came up to the room, you know, and he was just lying there. He was a very old, fragile man, and you know, but still, I wanted to make the trip, you know. But I'm glad that we pulled through, and that it actually became a film, because it could have stopped there for sure. Because he didn't want to do it then, you know. Of course, he was scared of, you know.
I mean, there were a lot of, we had a lot of talks with doctors and with Philip's mom and dad that we didn't show in the film because that would have been boring. But we was touch and go whether we should continue or not. But we would never have done it if we had jeopardized his health. But it really felt, it was also a weird call to the people who financed the film that this is now really in jeopardy.
He's in the hospital, you know. But my mom is the best to have around. I mean, I truly love my mom. Her positivism is just insane, because she's just like, you should just leave. You should just leave. He needs to get out of the house. And I think it's really good for him, honestly, to have her, and to obviously she wouldn't have, you know, sent him to France if it was dangerous. But he would always say no, you know. That's the first thing he says is no, and then you need to convince him.
Another aspect that comes out beautifully is your friendship. And that we're seeing up front what it's like between the two of you. But it's just so moving, Fredrik, to see you make this happen for your friend. And
I come off as a great guy.
Yeah, I come off great, don't I?
Especially there's one moment we talked, you know, my colleague and I, that you just say, "Get it done," and then poor Fredrik goes.
Well, he's
trying
not
to find a parent.
I mean, he's not that, you know, driven by me. It's more you.
You're my dominatrix or whatever.
Well, that's not the truth, though. But it's interesting. I talked to the editors while we were editing the film, and they said,
you ask him to go get a parakeet, and he goes, "Where am I going to get a parakeet?" And you just say, "Get it done."
Yeah. Well, I did it that time.
Tough love.
But
it was, for me, it was like, this felt like such an adventure, and also it felt so. We all, when I see the film now, and we leave this little town, we roll out of the little city, and the music starts playing, I can go back in time to how we all felt in this little crew, that we were actually going to change this. We were all smitten by his enthusiasm and naivete, whatever it's called. So I really thought we're going to perform a miracle on this man. So it was for everybody involved like a slow. Philip realized it last, I think, but we all realized this is not really going to be about him becoming like step dancing again or whatever. This is going to be about something else. But it felt just rewarding the whole time, and especially since I've known Lars for as long as I've known Philip. So it felt like a privilege, actually.
But did you know yourself that things were not going to go the way that
I think, yeah, the thing that when Lars fell and we drove the car down to the French border, that was actually when I started realizing, when we had these conversations in the car over beers, like, this is more about Philip. And it was weird because he didn't seem to realize that. And first I thought, is that going to play weird in this film? But then that's how life is. You need it. You really want to. It's like a safety barrier in your mind, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I think there's
denial.
The denial component, I think, is very universal as well. How we push it, you know, as long as we can, not to realize what's actually going on. And I still do that, I guess, with a lot of things in life. I think we all do, you know. But Fredrik was, you know, I mean, you've seen my dad regularly throughout the years, and you've seen that he's...
There is a scene in the film where we look at the Brel statue in Brussels, and Philip is like, this is my childhood was spent here, and it was raised in 2017. And some people who saw the film said, should you leave that out maybe, because that make people may question Filip's whole story, and I was like, no, that's the point. Because I mean, is a memory worth less if it hasn't happened? That's like a question you can ask yourself. Like, maybe it's worth something even if it hasn't happened, because that's how they are in this family.
That's what Fred, when I was a kid, my dad said only 30% of a story needs to be right. You can add, the other 20, there's some leg room. The 70% do whatever he wants. So that's how I was raised. So I think I truly thought that I visited that or been by that statue many, many times as a kid. Did you put that plate on there?
That little moment for me symbolizes how we are. He is the romanticizer and the storyteller, and I'm sort of the realist trying to fact check things. I am the trust the science guy, and he's the, I don't know what he is.
Sometimes it's boring with someone who always fact checks things. It's like when my dad says, like, oh, it's nice to drive, you saw that in the film, and drive through these climate zones. And then Fredrik's like, are there that many climate zones? That's the fact checker in full bloom, so to speak. We don't need them, really. But
you guys are you're like Don Quixote and Sancho Panza.
But very true, actually, very true. I don't know who is who, but yeah.
Duh.
I'm Sancho Panza, maybe. But I mean, I'm much taller than he is, so it feels like I should be Don Quixote.
You're lighter than Sancho Panza.
That's true.
But that's got to be the ugliest statue I've ever seen.
The statue, yeah, it's
the Jacques Brel statue.
It's
I don't understand how his family sort of approved of it, But his dog, my dad is such a fan of Jacques Brel. So my dad got a signed book about his memoir from Jacques Brel's daughter to my dad, that she thought this film was.
Would have been more powerful had it been Jacques Brel.
Yeah, but he's dead.
Yeah, no, but still, the daughter, I'm not so sure.
Well,
to falsify
she wrote the book at least.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for being here. You guys are amazing. What an incredible movie.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Coming.
Oh,
thank you.
Oh, of course.
No, I'm
sweating. Yeah, all right.